Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the teenage years. I'm Rachel Richards, parenting coach, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters.
Hi there, I'm Susie Asley, mindfulness coach, mindful therapist and musician, and mother of 3 teenagers, 2 of them are twins.
Now, Susie, I was messaged by Stacy, whose nearly 15-year-old son came home with a hickey, love bite on his neck. Now, this was the second time. The first, she and her partner or husband had asked him not to let it happen again. I asked my daughter what she thought, and she looked at me blankly and went, why is that a problem?
Yeah, we've experienced that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Who was? Oh, I won't ask who it was. Interesting. What did you do?
It was family dinner time. Suggested he went and put on a hoodie.
Right. Is that so that you didn't have to look at it?
No, it was so that his siblings wouldn't take the mick, and my parents were coming around for dinner.
Oh,
so I was just like, let's just cover it up for ease.
Okay.
But he wasn't that fussed. It wasn't a big deal, and we talked about it because it happened a couple of times. It wasn't a big. It's like, it's just people do that.
Right.
Which in my day was like, ooh, that was a big deal.
Yes.
I don't think it is.
And I think that's what's interesting is because when we react to something, I guess we just need to check our own feelings about it and why is it this is such a big thing for me and how do they feel about it? And then try and work your way through that as to whether this really is a big deal. Because I think quite often people feel like it's a reflection of their parenting, perhaps, particularly when they're young. You think, and when your teenager becomes sexual, it can feel very confrontational.
Yes, yeah.
Because a lot of us aren't ready.
No, it is quite it's quite a statement, isn't it? It's very visual.
Yes, and why? And I think there's an element of marking your territory when people do this. So we'll talk about that in our discussion because actually it's a fascinating area. Yeah. She's not the only one I know who got upset about it. I was at a party where a mother said exactly the same thing about a boy who was exactly the same age, and she felt it was very disrespectful. Okay. So we'll talk about that. Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was a great way of discussing the whole dating scene for teens because it can feel actually quite triggering for us parents, right? Yes.
It's not how it was in our day.
Not in my day, no. We just stood around in semi-detached houses drinking Southern Comfort and lemonade and snogging whoever went past.
God, that's my past.
Okay. And you've had a son in a serious relationship, so that's really useful. Yes. And I've got 2 bonus daughters, so I've got stuff. Anyway, let's talk about nuggets first, shall we?
Yeah, my nugget is unrelated to that, and it's this week. One of my twins has timekeeping challenges.
No.
And it very much comes to a front in the mornings when there's a train time. You either get the train or you miss it. Timekeeping is important. And we have a big field they have to cross in the mornings, and it's really wet at the moment. There's loads of dew, and my daughter has a hole in her shoe at the moment. So that's a whole other story. So I've been very kindly, I think, driving them to the station, which is literally 2 minutes away. So my son has been getting later and later, and one morning we raced to the station. And I felt that was dangerous for me, and I was went, this is not okay. I'm not doing that again. That's crazy. So we have if you're not down by 56 past the hour, then you miss the lift. You have to get the next train. Okay. And he was pushing the boundaries. So it's 58. And I'm like, come on, it's happening again. And I said, if you're not there, one morning, I was really calm. I was like, you're not going to make it. You're still eating your breakfast and it's 55.
Wow.
I said, I will drive. I will go. And he didn't quite believe me, I don't think. So I did.
Absolutely. You can't threaten things and not follow through.
No.
Yes.
And my daughter was sitting there going, come on, we have to go. And so we did. And he was a bit cross about that, but totally fine. So you can be as cross as you like, but he got it as well. And the same morning, I also made him pay for the gate key that he's lost. Right. So I thought, well, let's just go all in. And can you also give me, because they're really expensive, the stupid keys, and it costs 25 quid, which is ridiculous.
It's really expensive.
So he had that and the key, and he was unbelievably gracious about it. He was annoyed. I said, you can be annoyed and you're being really gracious. That's very cool. And his timekeeping has slightly improved since.
It's an interesting one because when I was coaching parenting, this came up a lot. Yeah. And it's really important that when we put in place boundaries or we say this is what's going to happen, that you follow through. Yes. Because when we don't, for the next 4 or 5 times, they won't believe you.
No.
And you have to sort of, and the worst thing is don't put in place something that you're not prepared to go through with. So, no television for a week is a really bad thing when they're little, because you're the person who will probably suffer most. Yeah, just straightforward. Here's the boundary, and it's staying. It's not moving. Yeah, great. Well done,
you need to pay for the key.
So for me, I had one of those weeks where I had a lot of conversations with my teenagers that involved big emotions for various reasons. And it was fascinating because these waves, these things that they experience, they're sometimes straw men, but they can be very upsetting in their world. And there are all sorts of things that would trigger really big emotions in a teenager. And they call me and talk to me about these things. And I wanted to talk about how it makes us feel as parents, because it can really be triggering, again, that word, but it actually makes you feel like either you're transported back to being a teenager, or that you want to rescue them. You're a parent, your child is suffering. I want to go and you can feel physically furious because you've gone into that fight, flight, freeze yourself. Or helpless. Oh, and you're up all night thinking, oh my goodness. But what's fascinating about it is, and I've talked to my teens, is that we kind of need to be a bucket for their emotions that they can pour them into, and then maybe just kind of look into the bucket together and just say, so, and unpick some of the stuff that's been going on, and maybe suggest things, maybe not, give them a chance to actually work it out themselves. And what's really interesting is that we're left with this sense of trauma. Once our kids have dumped all this on us, it sort of made me understand what it must feel like to be a therapist at times, where you listen to very, very difficult things. They get up, walk out feeling lighter and happier. The problem is your teen might have hung off and gone off, and the next day they're perfectly happy, and you're still mulling over the problem because you still feel like you need to fix it. And it's
as a therapist, it's harder with your teenagers, I would say.
Exactly. No, that's the thing, because as a therapist, you're not emotionally involved. It's not your...
It triggers your own stuff.
It triggers your own stuff.
You learn how to deal with that.
Exactly.
You learn how to separate. And it's harder. You can do that with your teenager, but it's harder. But I love that idea of the bucket. It's really important that they feel that they can dump in the bucket.
Yes, just to literally. And they've said that to me. They've said, it just makes a big difference just to be able to just drop it all, and then they're relieved and they can go away feeling better. So coming back to dating, there are a lot of categories for dating now. So first of all, should we have a quick review?
Yep, I have 2 lovely reviews here. One of them is called Great Down to Earth Advice. I love listening to your podcast. It is a great mixture of research, wisdom nuggets, and examples from everyday life. Great topics and always spot on advice. Sometimes it is even enough just to hear that I'm not the only one having a hard time with my teenagers. Yeah, that's kind of why we do it.
And I feel that way too.
Exactly. Special thanks for taking time researching and talking about twins and emotional intelligence. I found it fascinating. You're so welcome. Thank you for the lovely review.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another...
It was a really good suggestion.
Short one. Saved my sanity. Oh, that's quite a big thing we've done there. We went through a period of struggling with our 14-ager. Listening to Teenagers Untangled has provided me and my husband with priceless insight and many tools to cope better. Oh, thank you very much. That's really lovely.
Yeah. Wow. Helping people with their sanity has got to be a good thing, hey?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure about my own, but...
Yeah, that's quite impressive, isn't
it? Right. So coming back to dating. There seem to be a lot of categories now. When I was a teenager, you were kind of going out with someone or you weren't. Now, I've heard the terms talking, walking. So talking is when you're chatting to somebody, but you're not going out with them. And walking is kind of similar, where you go out with them, but you're not going out with them. You're just kind of wandering around aimlessly.
Right. I don't know these terms, actually.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of these terms. Linking. Which is apparently friends with benefits. Situationship, no one has a clue what's going on. Dating, you're together, but you're not exclusive necessarily until you actually go exclusive. Yeah. And this actually extends into the sort of 20-year-olds. I've seen that, where they date, but until they've actually both agreed that they are exclusive, they're not.
Oh, wow.
Like, you can say, that's my boyfriend, but you're not actually assuming that they're exclusive.
So you presume you're not exclusive until you state
actually,
it. So it's the opposite than it used to be.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And what's really interesting with the 20-year-olds, because of course I've got bonus daughters and I have access to all these the little bit higher generation. I've seen some who are married with a house, mortgage, dog, yes?
Yeah.
And some who their attitude is, I'm enjoying my freedom. You've got to try it with your guy friends, see if there's something there. Okay. And then you settle into friendships.
Right.
And so it's a much more relaxed attitude for some of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Not all of them. We've got quite a range there, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Right. So on terms of teens, I dig around for dating stats. There was a research report by Jean Tweng of San Diego State University Journal, in the journal Child Development, who said that they'd found the percentage of 12th graders who had ever gone on a date in 1990 to 1994 was 84%. Between 2010 and 2016, they said it was 63%. Okay. Now, what's your definition of dating?
Yeah.
That's it. But this kind of mimics what we found in teen delinquency. Remember that episode where we actually found that all these marks of teenage delinquency, including teenage pregnancies, have dropped.
Yeah.
So that actually would indicate the same thing.
Yeah, really interesting. And I just wonder, because I think my experience is that they FaceTime, or maybe it's not on FaceTime. I don't know what.
Yeah, it's not FaceTime, is
thing
it?
they're using,
Snap,
but
probably,
they're video calling.
Yes.
And that has quite a big effect, I think, doesn't it? Because you're actually having a proper conversation rather than so maybe you don't need to go on so many dates. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or need a condom, really, when you're... Sorry. Anyway, we take teen relationships seriously? Well, for teens, it's really, really important.
Yeah, really important.
The truth is they are, in relative terms, they're quite short, and we often look at it and go, oh, sweet, that's so sweet. But for them, it's a really big thing, isn't it? Having said that, the relationship between teenagers in high school is only vaguely similar to that of adult couples, because they're kind of dating in greenhouse conditions, aren't they? They don't have to earn money or rent a house or pay taxes, and it's a much less. It's less fraught in that way. It's more about issues like, how do I communicate with somebody?
Yeah, it's purely emotional, isn't it?
It's purely emotional. It's it's really interesting just to make that distinction. So why do they date? Wow.
It's fun.
It's fun.
They've got hormones. They fancy each other.
And the hormones are really, really critical, because a lot of hormones are triggered with this. Yeah. And, it's a way of trying out their sexuality, their bodies, all these wonderful things about it.
It's biological, isn't it? We're attracted to people.
And I think if we look at relationships as from a love perspective and a marriage perspective, it's quite limiting. One of the things I hit on when I was talking to my daughters about this was one of the key things is status. And what I mean by that is, as soon as you start dating of any type, and people notice it, they're talking.
Yeah.
They're talking about it. And it can elevate you. So if you've got a boyfriend or you've got a girlfriend, it sort of gives you status, because someone's accepted you. Someone's
crazy, but it's true. Yeah,
it's true. It's how we work as human beings. And if I noticed this when I was young, if a boy starts to find you attractive, and this works both ways, other boys will go, wait, hang on a second.
Yeah.
What, right?
Yeah, what's she got?
What's she got? And they suddenly, everybody starts to notice that maybe you're more interesting than they thought. So there's a huge status element to it.
It's also on a more primal level as well, isn't it? It is biology. We get attracted to people. It's biology. It's really normal. It's a survival thing, isn't it? And it's very exciting when someone finds us attractive. And we follow those emotions. We follow that adrenaline. We follow those hormones that then get released upon that. And it's really normal. It's really beautiful.
I wanted to mention love, just because I think we often get confused about what we're talking about here, because love is I just think it's a really useless word. I think
Rachel.
It's so limiting, okay? Because if you talk about the ancient Greeks had 7 words for different types of love, and we use, like, we can say we fancy you. It's not it's quite a limiting word. And so, for example, eros was passion, lust, pleasure. Philia was kind of authentic the stuff that great friendship is made of, you know, and it can be platonic or it can be a romantic partner. So these lots of layers of love here. Ludus, which is the non-committal type of love, where you can banter with your friend, engage in playful conversation, flirting. That would be ludus. Stork, I think it's stork, which is unconditional familial love. So the family level of love. Philautia, which is self-compassion. And that's nurturing yourself, cultivating self-awareness, honoring your own body and its needs. Pragma is love built on commitment and understanding and long-term interests, which is probably comes in much later.
Yes.
And then agape, which is altruism and pay it forward love. So it's like being selfless and doing things for a community. Again, that's not really a teenager's kind of territory, right? So it's actually really interesting breaking down the different types of love and going, well, you know,
that's really interesting,
rather than controlling it, saying are they in love or they not?
Yeah, we have a problem with eros in our teens, don't we? And then the others are fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we have a problem with it.
I looked up some stats on it, and fewer than 2% of people marry their high school sweetheart. And when teens do get married, only about half of them make it to their 10th year anniversary. Also, I read that on average, relationships between 16-year-olds tend to last about 6 months, 17 and 18-year-olds about a year. Again, it's an average. So, you know,
sounds long, doesn't it? It's a time of experimentation, isn't it, in all areas, and particularly this one. So it's a fluid time of, I have these feelings, trying them out in a safe and appropriate way, of course.
But I like that, you see, and I think the reason I'm talking about this is I think we really need to take a breath and think, what is going on here? And there's some very, very important stuff going on. But if we force them to say, are you going to marry this person?
Oh,
or
my God,
no, but there's an element of that, of kind of locking people into, you know, no sex before marriage or no, which is fine. If those are your values, you know that those are your values. But there's an element of people learning from having relationships that is very important.
Really important. It's like any relationship that teenagers go through, or children, or any of us really, but, you know, siblings, we learn our boundaries, we learn all sorts of things through our siblings that we've talked about here before. And, you know, potential relationships, whatever that looks like, it's like a playground of learning of how to communicate, how to even, you know, how do we kiss? How do we do these things? What do we do? And you know, talking about it with friends, talking about it with them, it's invaluable.
Yes.
And the minute we bring shame into it, or awkwardness, which it will be because it's new and different, and they, you know, by the nature of it, it's a bit awkward at that age, it's a shame.
And I think it's a hyper learning experience. So we learn every day. We learn about interactions and human behavior and things. But when you get into this sort of more relationship status with anybody, you're having to learn stuff really quickly. And I think it can be really beneficial. According to one research study, even after accounting for early relationship experiences with parents and peers, aspects of adolescent dating experiences predict romantic relationship qualities in young adulthood. And what they said in this was that adolescents who dated fewer partners in mid-teens and experienced a better quality of dating relationship demonstrated romantic partner interactions that were smoother and had easier relationships. And the converse is true, that if there was a lot of conflict in their early relationships and they dated a lot more partners, it can result in a more negative.
I'm sure that's right.
And I had a friend whose daughter started a relationship as a teenager, and it was just lovely because they both made a list of all the things they'd like to do and did them together. And so now you have someone by your side who's supporting you in trying out new things.
Amazing.
And these can be very, very positive things.
And relationships are also, if you're struggling with yourself, then you're attracting a certain type of partner. So it's all connected to how we are in general in the world, all of it.
Yes, and it plants the seeds of self-sufficiency and independence from your parents too. So you start to kind of think, how would I be if I'm not with my parents, if I'm not at home? How am I going to behave in the world? Who will I be attached to?
Yes, and parents play a big role in that, because I mean, my experience was that my parents weren't very keen on me dating or doing anything with the opposite sex, if that's your your favor, or having any kind of romantic or sexual relationship. And that was really problematic. That made it weird, and that made it like secret, and that's not a great option either.
Yes, and then you're left thinking, well, is there something wrong with me? Or you're having to ally yourself with other kids who may not really be thinking this through either.
Yeah.
So it is better to have parents who can talk to you about this stuff, I think. It can be hard for teens to take a long view or to step back and consider things calmly. And this lack of executive functioning can also lead to risky behaviour.
Yes.
Which is why, again, you want to be inside the circle of safety with your teenager, being able to talk to them so you can guide them rather than outside. There's a study published in the Journal of Adolescent Mental Health, and the researchers found that the early stages of teenage love have similar effects as hypomania, and that's a state of kind of abnormally elevated energy, activity, mood changes. It's a bit like bipolar disorder when you're this really excited stage.
Are we not like that as adults?
I think we can be, yes. I think
falling in love
for
is
sure.
just an amazing experience.
You've done it recently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just thinking, well, that doesn't necessarily have to be a teenager.
No,
maybe it's more
absolutely.
exaggerated, and maybe it's more reckless when it's a teenager because they don't have the executive function. But the feelings, the euphoria, the endorphins, all of that's the same.
But I do think the difference is that for a teenager, it may well be the very first time they've ever experienced this. Whereas as an adult, you will have coping mechanisms for going, okay, I'm not going to completely divert my life in one direction just because I feel this way. There was a quote, why do so many high school relationships fail? They're not really failing, are they?
No, they're just experimenting.
Because that's the thing. When you start talking about
That's
a relationship
problem,
failing,
actually.
that's the problem. I looked at that and thought, there you are. That's why we've got a problem with...
That's kind of coming with a hypothesis that you go out with your 15-year-old boyfriend and you are together forever. And if you don't, then bang, fail.
Yes,
that's rubbish.
Yes, rubbish. So the search for identity is the central task of being an adolescent, right? So if you're in a relationship, you'll develop your identity, and then you may well both be wanting different things, and this is normal.
Totally.
And then you need to...
That happened to my son.
Yeah. You need to go off and explore elsewhere, which is perfectly normal and wonderful.
Normal. And absolutely the right thing to be doing, because the alternative is staying together, and it's wrong.
It's wrong.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that? And so, advice for teens. Prioritising getting to know yourself, because this is your job as a teenager, is trying to work out who am I, what am I, what matters to me, and try to avoid the tendency to mould yourself to your current partner. I had a girlfriend who every time she had a new boyfriend would start his hobby. She had a wardrobe full of different things.
Wow.
Yeah, like, somebody who flew, somebody who's a DJ, literally all the different, she'd buy all the stuff.
Yeah.
It was really sweet. well, that's the thing, because actually you get to try all these new hobbies. But then, I then say, oh, how's the surfing? And she go, oh, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Has it gone? Yeah, I've just got a different one.
We can all learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Make choices that are best for you. So again, this is like, rather than trying to stay in the relationship, what's best for you? What are you trying to do with your life? And keeping a balanced social life is critical, because if they don't, if and when it doesn't pan out, they need that other network. They need that support, don't they?
I think that's really important, and I think that's very common, that we get so wrapped up in this amazing euphoric feeling of whatever that looks like for the teenager, that we then prioritise that over our friends, which is completely normal and it will happen, but it's really important to keep your friendship groups and prioritise that as well.
Yes.
I had that conversation with one of my kids, and it's really important. Yeah. And it felt for him, it felt awkward because actually he did want to, and she was pushing in a way that he was quite young, and it was, it was all fine, but it's really, really important, because suddenly you're not being who you are either, because you need your mates.
And I love that, because what you were doing there as a parent was providing a backstop and saying, so this, because it then gives them a little speed bump to think, actually, is this the right thing for me?
Yeah, I nudged a few times and went, is that what you want?
Yes.
Not really. Okay, well, let's work this out. And we worked it out.
I like that. So tips, let them know they can talk to you about anything. And really about anything. Go back to the episode on how not to overreact, because that's really helpful. I learned a lot from that. And it's just about being able to sit and go, okay, I feel uncomfortable about this, but that's okay. Yes. It doesn't matter. I just need to listen and help them think through things. Yes. Validate and celebrate their experience. For them, it's really exciting. So if you sit there and go, oh, I don't think that's a good thing, all that's going to happen is they'll feel terrible about telling you anything. Yeah. That's not going to help. And
they are totally inexperienced. This is a new game, and it's really, It's really difficult.
It's very difficult. Encourage them to take their relationships offline. And I love this because one of our listeners really a long time ago, Sally, was saying, when we were talking about sexting, she said, do you want to send a photo of your boobs to a boy on the basis that he may end up showing that to everybody in the school? Or are you going to do things? Now, I'm not encouraging people to take their kids up into the bedroom. But my point is that it's actually just, it's so much more healthy to be spending time together. Yeah. Text messages can be misconstrued. They can amplify things that you didn't mean.
Yeah, and
it's much better to be together.
In the technology, there's a distance that comes in. It's not real.
So if they can, take the relationship offline and out of the glare of the public as well, if you can. Yeah. And protecting them from toxic teen relationships. Watch out for signs that indicate your teen isn't being treated right.
Yeah.
So, is their partner trying to control their behavior? Yeah. One or both teens are too jealous or overprotective. Yeah. Bruises or injuries. Withdrawing from friends and family, which we've talked about. Frequent arguments. These are all things that would make me think, right, I need to step in and explain calmly and clearly why something doesn't look quite right.
Help them with it.
And help them with it. Yeah. You don't want them to step, like you were talking about that other time where, we step forward and they step back.
Yes.
So you want to just step forward really gently and say, I'm seeing something. What do you think?
Yeah. And have them over if they feel comfortable doing that.
Yes.
I know it's very different for different kids and all of that. But if you can get them over and meet them and make it normal, it's a normal friendship rather than, ooh, it's your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and be weird about it.
Don't do that. My mother and
get to know them.
Absolutely. So Emma, one of our listeners, said exactly that. And she said, you can snip out the duds really quickly.
I love that.
But also, actually, a great story of some friends had a daughter who started dating a boy, and the family invited not just her, but her parents over, which was a really awkward evening. Yes. And then they broke up shortly afterwards.
Oh, nice.
So that was really uncomfortable. Yeah. So maybe just meet the child first before you demand that the parents come out.
Yeah.
I think that helping them staying connected and with their friends and everything can, make a massive difference, can't it?
And if they're already part of the same friendship group, then, well, that has pluses and minuses, obviously, but it can, if you might already know them, that's easier then, isn't it?
Yes. I remind them that real life dating isn't a movie.
Yeah.
Because it can be really confusing.
Yes. It's not a rom-com.
Yeah. It's not a rom-com. No. This is a good time to actually, we've talked about this before. It's actually really valuable to express your beliefs and your values. It's not, this isn't a bad thing, but actually forming hard barriers can be the problem. But actually saying, we believe in having a deep connection with somebody there's nothing wrong with that. No. And talking through how you see things, but imposing it on them is where it becomes problematic if they think, well, I don't agree.
Yeah.
So allowing them to say, well, I see it this way.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And boundaries and expectations, put them in place.
Yeah.
You can have them. If you don't like this kid, right, you can have a conversation with your team. But just like the episode where we talked about what happens if you don't like their friends, same thing applies. You just restrict access.
Yeah. And you can voice concerns but then go the other way, like we talked about in the other episode, try and get to know them.
Always.
Just try, because there's probably always lots of lovely things about them too.
I completely
and you can
agree.
have your reservations, and checking your reservations. Are they real, or are they your old triggers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said to my daughter, if you like that person, then I'm going to want to meet them because obviously there's something important there for you, and I want to get to know what it is in a really, really positive way.
Yeah.
Now, what about when their heart gets broken? I mean, they're going to get restless at some point. They may feel irritated or trapped, or, most of these relationships won't survive. But the worst thing we can do is minimize it.
Yes, absolutely. Like with any feelings, there's nothing wrong with the feelings. They're real. They're absolutely real. And if we minimize it, that's really painful for them.
Yes. Yeah. So, don't, the whole, there are more fish in the sea, or, I didn't like them anyway.
You're only 16.
You're only 16. It's not important. You wait till you're my age and we're divorcing. And No, I'm not getting divorced, by the way. One thing my daughter mentioned was, she said, if your child is in a relationship and they're not telling you, you should be a bit concerned, because it's actually about how they feel about you. If they're not prepared to tell you about it. I thought that was quite interesting.
That is interesting. I do, however, think it's different sometimes, massive generalisation coming up, for boys and girls.
Interesting. Yes, yes.
I do think that in general, boys are a little bit more private with these kind of things.
Yeah, good point.
Girls are, particularly maybe with their mums.
Yes, tell them everything.
Open.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So maybe pinch of salt with the boys if they don't. Like doesn't necessarily mean there's a big issue.
Yeah.
They just aren't ready to tell you yet.
Yeah.
I mean, mine are pretty good about that, but they're different from my daughter.
Now, how to help your teen through a breakup. You don't have to find the right thing to say. You just don't.
No.
You need to let them vent, encourage them to talk with their friends, help them establish a routine, because the routines will just get them through their days and get them, because it takes time.
Yeah.
And
try and be respectful as well. I think it can be really tempting to go into a big slanging match and be kind of a bit disrespectful in general, but treat present partners and exes with respect.
I love that. Yes, and it's really important. You don't suddenly hate everything about them because you loved things about them. So it's actually being respectful as you walk out of the door as well, and that's a really good lesson.
Your head up high,
yes,
rather
I
than,
love that.
Go and do that to him. He's an idiot kind of thing. That's not cool.
Yeah. It takes time to heal. Being single doesn't mean being alone. And you can and will feel love again. But it's not going to happen immediately. So you just have to, there are times you need to get help. If there's been several weeks and they're not getting over their feelings, they have persistent low moods, they've disengaged with their life and their friends, it might be worth getting some support, whether that's the GP or any
school counsellor.
Let the school know if they can. They might be able to step in and give them some support.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important. I was super impressed by one of my kids. It was a very brief relationship, but being really courageous, and if it's not working for you, then do the right thing.
Oh, this is a really good one,
because it's
mostly they
so
don't. It's
easy
very hard.
Just to do the whole ghosting thing.
Yes.
And my son didn't, and he was only 15. I was so impressed. Off his own bat, and explained and said it's not working for me, etc., etc. And knowing that she was more into it than he was, and that's really important. It takes guts, though.
I love that. And that's where we as parents can coach our kids and say, so it's okay. It's okay to not want to be with this person. That's fine. But out of respect for just it's another human being. They deserve to have something
and
more
it feels
than that.
So much better for the person doing it as well, because it's clean, it feels honourable, as there's a dignity in it, rather than just
and they can ask a question
sneaking off and ghosting them. That doesn't feel nice for them either.
Although I did read this woman complaining about how she'd turned up to this date she'd put on some stilettos, all her makeup, and done her hair, and they got to the restaurant and he said, by the way, I actually don't want to be in this relationship anymore. And she said, everyone says don't dump people on text, but actually I would have rather that, because he wasted my evening and I put all these Right. So, well, I think that's it for teenage relationships. Like everything, we can make a massive difference by being the person who lets them think through how they feel. Right. Yeah, it's just like trying to nudge them to help them see what the particulars are. It can give them a huge amount of mental distress if they can't think clearly about the issues. And so we need to be that space.
Yeah. Or at least be the space that we can pick up the pieces.
Up the pieces. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's normal life, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. We all wish we didn't have to go through heartbreak, but it will happen. If you have any feedback, you can reach us at teenagersuntangled@gmail.com. Hit the follow button on your app, or give us some stars, or even leave a review.
Yes.
All these things will help us. Yeah, just tell everybody. Anyway, you can find more on the website at www.teenagersuntangled.com and find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We are still finalists for the Independent Podcast Award. We haven't heard yet. Susie she's very on LinkedIn. You're really linked into LinkedIn, aren't you? Because you've got a corporate size as well.
Some corporate stuff at the moment.
Yeah, she's been. They're all after her. Google and
so popular.
Yes. So you can nudge her there. Her website, where you can actually have a proper conversation,
is www.mindful-life.co.uk.
And you won't have to listen to me rambling. Straight to the horse's mouth.
Pluses and minuses with all of these things.
So yeah, you can have a 15-minute free conversation,
free chat with me.
Yeah.
What couldn't is better than
what
that?
could go wrong? That's it for now. Speak soon.
Bye for now.
We have some very, very exciting news, don't we, Susie?
We do.
We do. We have been nominated. No, wait, not nominated. We've been shortlisted for an award.
We have.
How did that happen?
Woohoo!
Oh, actually, I entered it. It's the Independent Podcast Awards, and we have been shortlisted in the self-improvement category.
Yeah, I went blank there. I can't remember.
In the I can't remember category.
I need to self-improve, clearly.
Well, we're really, really super excited about it. The ceremony's on October the 30th. I'm not even going to be there.
Oh, which would have been so fun to go together.
Know, we never get the chance to go out together.
I know, it would have been fun.
We have to go and celebrate the award afterwards, won't we? Because we'll win, won't we? And the reason this is really, really important is because we're just independent. We're just doing this. I'm doing this in my spare time. I've got a computer. I just edit everything, record it in the bedroom. And it's very hard to get noticed in all the podcasts. So the Independent Awards are sort of looking at the smaller people who don't have any funding or anything. So yeah,
it's very exciting.
Yay! Watch out for the news.